There are moments so pristine, so meticulously designed, they almost seem sacred. That's what our wedding looked like: ivory roses, crystal chandeliers, strings of violins slicing through the silence as I walked down the aisle toward Marcus, a man whose stillness made others uneasy. People said he had presence. I say he had calculation. Marcus was the kind of man who never raised his voice because he never needed to. Everything in his life bent toward control. Including me. In the beginning, I mistook that control for care. I was 24 and dazzled by the tailored suits, the whispered reservations in private dining rooms, the way he held my wrist instead of my hand. As if I were breakable. But breakable things live in glass boxes. They don't get to move. They don't get to breathe. 3 years in, I found myself breathless in all the wrong ways. Enter Julian. He was hired to shoot a lifestyle spread for Maison de Verre, Marcus's boutique hotel chain. I'd modeled for a few promotional campaigns before, my husband's idea of putting my beauty to use, but Julian wasn't like the others. He didn't flatter. He studied. The first time he photographed me, he didn't direct. He watched. Silent. Focused. And when I shifted my weight or brushed hair from my cheek, I felt his attention like heat on skin. Later, in the studio, the air smelled of lighting gels, dust, and espresso. It was after hours. I stood in front of a black backdrop in nothing but a silk robe and bare feet. Julian adjusted the lens, then paused. "You always look like you're waiting for permission," he said. I blinked. To what? He stepped closer. To exist. It wasn't a line. It was an accusation. And it sank deep. The kiss didn't feel like seduction. It felt like rebellion. Like something primal had pushed up through the marble surface I'd lived under for years and demanded air. His hand grazed my collarbone, slow and questioning, and when I didn't flinch, he pushed the robe slightly from my shoulder. His lips followed. My breath caught in my throat, not from shock but from recognition, like I'd forgotten my own body and was suddenly being reintroduced to it. No apologies. No strategy. Just hunger. He didn't undress me. I did that. Quietly. Deliberately. The sound of fabric sliding down my skin louder than his breath, louder than my own heartbeat. We didn't make love. We didn't have sex. It was something in between, aching, clumsy, desperate. There was a mirror leaning against the studio wall, and at one point, I saw us reflected in it. I didn't recognize myself. Afterward, I stood by the open window in nothing but his jacket. The city looked softer at night. Julian kissed my spine once, slowly, and whispered, "You don't belong in a museum." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. But deep in my gut, something cold and ancient stirred. Because Marcus, he always knew everything. And if he knew this? Then I had just lit a match in a house made entirely of glass. For weeks after that night with Julian, I floated. Not like a woman in love. Not even like someone drowning in guilt. No, mine was a float born of tension, of holding breath. A kind of high that comes from walking blindfolded along a wire and realizing, too late, that you like the fall. Marcus never asked where I'd been. He never questioned the overnight charity events or the late-night gallery tours. If he noticed my perfume had changed, or that I stopped wearing the lingerie he bought me from Florence, he didn't say. And somehow, that silence was louder than any accusation could have been. Julian, on the other hand, was all noise. Texts at midnight. Polaroids slipped into my purse. Little notes folded into my coat pocket that said things like "You look more alive when you lie." He wanted more. He called it love, but it felt more like obsession. He'd cup my face in his palms and say, "Leave him. You don't belong in that world." But he didn't understand. Marcus didn't just own homes and hotels. He owned narratives. My life with him wasn't just comfortable, it was curated. Leaving him wouldn't be walking away from a man. It would be walking away from an entire version of myself. Still, I started to toy with the idea. I imagined Julian's hands instead of Marcus's cool fingertips. I imagined mornings that smelled like coffee and sheets, not cologne and control. I imagined laughter. And then Marcus gave me the emerald bracelet. It was a Tuesday. Rain etched the windows like veins. I came home late, coat damp, hair undone. Marcus stood in the kitchen, pouring wine like he hadn't just ignored 5 nights of my absences. "This is new," he said, nodding at my dress. I froze. "You don't like it?" He smiled faintly. "I didn't say that." Then he slid a velvet box across the marble counter. Inside, a bracelet, antique, green stones like serpent's eyes. Cold. Impossibly expensive. "Why?" I asked. His eyes met mine, still smiling, but hollow. "Because I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For becoming exactly who I thought you would." I didn't sleep that night. Something in his voice, it hadn't been love. It hadn't even been sarcasm. It was, farewell. Like he'd already stepped away from me, emotionally packed his bags and left without moving a muscle. And suddenly I knew, he knew. Of course he knew. But Marcus didn't rage. He didn't accuse. He did what men like him do. He calculated. I should have left right then. Should have run. But instead, I curled into the bed next to him, like nothing had changed, and whispered goodnight into the dark. And Marcus whispered back, without turning his head. "Sleep well, Elena. You'll need your strength." The first real sign was so small, I nearly missed it. Marcus began sleeping in the guest room. No announcement. No fight. One evening, he simply didn't come to bed. I woke up to untouched pillows, the faint echo of his cologne fading down the hallway. For a man who spent most of his life in control of everything, from negotiations in boardrooms to the angle of a wine glass at formal dinners, this felt deliberate. I waited 2 nights. Then 3. On the 4th, I asked. "Are you working late?" I said lightly, standing in the doorway of the guest room, watching him button his cuffs. He looked at me, calm, distant, and replied, "I sleep better here." "You move too much." I moved too much. That was his excuse. As if my tossing had suddenly become unbearable after 5 years of marriage. But it wasn't about the bed. It was about distance. Space. Positioning. Julian noticed the shift before I did. "He's backing away," he said during one of our meetings, quick, frantic, behind the gallery, where dust hung in sunbeams and our voices didn't echo. "He hasn't said anything," I argued, though my voice lacked conviction. Julian shrugged. "It's always the quiet ones. They don't explode. They watch. They wait. And then they strike where you least expect it." He kissed me like he was trying to erase Marcus from my skin. And for a moment, I let him. I let him because I needed someone to touch me like I still mattered. But even in his arms, I felt watched. There was a presence lately. A subtle pressure, like a mirror turned slightly too far, always catching me at the wrong angle. I'd open my laptop and find tabs I didn't remember leaving open. My phone would die faster than usual. Marcus's assistant, Helena, who had never so much as smiled at me, suddenly began texting me, asking if I'd be attending an upcoming fundraiser, if I needed help choosing a dress. It was subtle. Intentional. Like a breadcrumb trail I didn't remember laying down. One night, I walked into my closet and found a note tucked into a pair of heels I hadn't worn in months. White card. Black ink. Marcus's handwriting. Even the purest glass hides cracks in the right light. I stared at the note for a long time, heart hammering, hands cold. I didn't confront him. I didn't need to. Marcus wasn't warning me. He was inviting me to wonder how much he knew, and when he'd decide to use it. From that moment, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage. And I didn't know if I was the actress, or the audience. I found out he knew everything at exactly 7:04 p.m. I'd just gotten home from a so-called shoot, still wearing the same perfume Julian always said drove him crazy. My heels clicked across the marble floor as I reached the living room, and froze. The TV was on. Marcus never left the TV on. Ever. The screen was black for a second, then flickered to life. I saw myself standing in Julian's studio. I didn't understand what I was watching at first. Then Julian entered the frame. He walked behind me. I turned, smiling. He kissed me. Deep. Slow. My hands wrapped around his neck. His slid under my blouse. I could hear the sounds, breath, low laughter, a soft gasp I'd made without even thinking. And then I heard Marcus's voice behind me. Good shot, isn't it? I turned like I'd been slapped. He was standing in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, a glass of water in one hand, completely composed. How did you get this? I asked. My voice cracked halfway through. He didn't move. Hidden camera. Behind the mirror in the studio. Wired into a private cloud. I've had it set up for 2 months now. 2 months. I felt sick. You were spying on me? No, he said calmly, I was confirming a hypothesis. I wanted to scream. To deny. To cry. But there it was, my body, my betrayal, caught in HD. He'd probably watched it a dozen times. He placed the glass down and walked toward me slowly. I own the building Julian works in, he said. You didn't know that, did you? He's technically my tenant. Do you know what that means? He was close now. Not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the weight of what he was about to say. It means I can legally enter, inspect, install, or monitor any part of the space, if I declare it a security concern. And what's more concerning than an employee ***ing my wife on commercial property? His voice was even. No shouting. No violence. But every word landed like a blow. I didn't plan this, I whispered. It wasn't like that. You planned enough, he said. You lied, covered, and kept showing up like nothing was wrong. So, let's not pretend you tripped and fell into his bed. Then he smiled. That smile. The one that meant danger. I have hours of footage. Audio. Text backups. GPS records. Credit card charges. Full digital timeline. If this were a legal case, I'd have enough to bury you and him together. I stared at him, speechless. My mouth was dry. My legs shaky. What are you going to do with it? I asked, terrified of the answer. He leaned in, gently brushed a strand of hair from my face like he still loved me. I don't need to do anything yet, he said. Not until I decide how beautiful your punishment should be. Then he turned and walked away. And for the first time since the affair began, I truly felt fear. 2 days after the confrontation, I came home to silence. No note. No Marcus. Just a house that felt like it had been emptied of soul. My name was gone from the shared calendar. My closet, half empty. His suits, missing. Even the smell of him had vanished from the hallway. He hadn't left me. Not officially. No, this was worse. Marcus was giving me rope. Watching me dangle. On the 3rd day, I received an email from his legal team. No subject. No greeting. Just a list of financial assets being evaluated for redistribution. A veiled threat, wrapped in civility. He hadn't filed for divorce yet, but the message was clear, he could. Whenever he wanted. I called Julian. No answer. Called again. And again. He finally texted back. I can't be part of this war. I didn't sign up for Marcus. Coward. I sat in my car outside his studio, staring at the door, fists clenched on the steering wheel. I could feel the rage boiling, not just at Marcus, not at Julian, at myself. For being sloppy. For being weak. That night, I went to a gallery opening. Not because I wanted to, but because I refused to disappear. If Marcus was going to strip my life piece by piece, I'd at least go down in heels. I wore black satin. Red lipstick. No ring. People whispered. Of course they did. His circles were my circles. Eyes followed me like they already knew. And then I saw him. I didn't even know his name at first. He was standing near the sculpture wing, tall, slightly unshaven, in a dark gray shirt that clung to him in the right places. When our eyes met, I saw something dangerous there, not desire. Permission. He walked up slowly. Confident, not arrogant. I don't remember how we started talking. I just remember how close he stood. How the air between us crackled like something already burning. He touched my wrist when I said something sarcastic. His thumb lingered. I'm taking you home, he said. I'm married, I replied. He smiled. You don't look like it. I should have left. I should have remembered the cameras. The risk. The fact that Marcus might still be watching. But I didn't. The stranger's hands were rougher than Julian's. His kiss, deeper. Less art, more instinct. And when I let him push me against the marble bathroom wall on the second floor of the gallery, I knew exactly what I was doing. And I didn't stop. Not even when he whispered, "You want him to see this, don't you?" I didn't answer. Because maybe. I did. Maybe I wanted to set fire to what little was left. Burn the ruins. Salt the ashes. Force Marcus's hand. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't know, was that Marcus had already moved beyond punishment. He was preparing for execution. I knew something was wrong when the doorman wouldn't look me in the eye. It was early afternoon. I'd just come back from a friend's place, my version of laying low. As I stepped into the lobby of our building, Samuel gave me a polite nod, but wouldn't meet my gaze. Like I was something fragile, already cracked. When the elevator reached our floor, I saw the envelope. No name. Just placed on the doormat like an invitation to hell. Inside were photos. Printed. Matte finish. High quality. Me. In the gallery bathroom. Against the wall. His hands under my dress. My mouth open. Eyes closed. Every angle. Every humiliating detail. And scrawled in Marcus's perfect, clinical handwriting across the final image. Not once. Not twice. Not yours anymore. I dropped the photos. I think I screamed, I don't remember. My phone rang. I picked up instinctively, hoping it was him, hoping for a chance to explain, to lie, to beg. But it wasn't Marcus. It was Sophie, his PR executive. "Hi, Elena," she said sweetly. "You should really check Instagram. And Twitter. And maybe your inbox. You're trending." I froze. I opened Instagram. There it was. A post from a new account at Glasswifebroken. 40K followers and rising. The profile picture? Me. One of the photos from the bathroom. Blurred just enough not to violate community standards. But recognizable. The caption read, "When you betray a man who gave you everything, this is who you really are." There were videos. Screenshots. Messages. Even audio. All real. All damning. All me. I gasped for breath. Tried to open my email. And there it was, a notification from the New York Register. A story pending for tomorrow morning. Headline already drafted. Betrayal in high society, wife of luxury hotel mogul caught in web of affairs. I collapsed to the floor. It wasn't just revenge. It was erasure. I wasn't the wife of a powerful man anymore. I was the subject of scandal. A meme. A punchline. A ruined name. That night, I called Marcus. I must have called 50 times. He never picked up. Eventually I sent a message. Please. Can we talk? He replied with one word. No. I tried again. Marcus. I'm sorry. Please. I didn't mean. This time the reply came not from him, but from his lawyer. All shared accounts have been closed. Your access to property, vehicles, and staff has been revoked. The divorce papers will arrive Friday. You will receive nothing outside of court determination. My client is prepared to pursue full public defamation countersuit if you attempt to retaliate or speak to the press. I stared at the screen, shaking. Marcus hadn't just removed me. He destroyed me. He waited until I thought it couldn't get worse. Then he took what was left of me and made sure it burned in front of an audience. I thought I'd feel rage. But all I felt was regret. The kind that hits in your bones. The kind that never leaves. And somewhere in the back of my mind, one phrase echoed like a drumbeat. You started this. He just finished it. I didn't run. I should have. But instead, I went to him. 3 days after the leak. After the lawyers. After I watched my name rot across every headline, every whisper, every inbox I opened. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. But I still had one card left. The truth. He hadn't filed the divorce yet. There was still time to shift the story. Still time to fight. I dressed sharp, dark blazer, hair tied back, no jewelry. I wasn't coming as the betrayed wife. I was coming as the only woman who'd ever known what scared him. Because that's the thing about Marcus. He doesn't show rage. He shows precision. But somewhere underneath all that composure, he bleeds. I knew where to find him. Private club. 5th Avenue. 4th floor, 2nd lounge. He always sat near the window, with 1 bourbon and 3 ice cubes. Never 2. Never 4. He didn't look surprised when I walked in. Just sipped his drink and said, without turning. You've got 5 minutes, Elena. I sat down across from him. Heart pounding. Mouth dry. I wanted to stop, I said. The press. The humiliation. The lawsuits. You made your point. He laughed, cold and quiet. I haven't started making my point. I leaned in, ignoring the shaking in my voice. Okay, fine. You won. You ruined me. You took everything. But you still need something, don't you? I said. You're not doing this just for pride. There's something else. He finally looked at me. His eyes weren't angry. They were disappointed. Elena, he said slowly, you keep thinking this is about you. My throat tightened. Isn't it? No, he replied. This is about control. And you lost it. Twice. I opened my mouth, but he cut me off. You humiliated me publicly. You weaponized my trust. And when I let you live, when I backed off and gave you silence, what did you do? You doubled down. You let another man fuck you like a challenge. In a gallery bathroom. You let strangers photograph it and laughed while doing it. That wasn't, I started, but he raised a hand. I don't care, he said. Because I've already moved on. I blinked. What? He took out his phone, tapped something, and placed it face up on the table. Photos. Him. With a woman. Blonde. Elegant. Her hand on his chest. Another shot, her at the hotel board meeting, wearing his watch. Another, him kissing her, softly, in front of a crowd. And below it, a press release. CEO Marcus Vail introduces new partner, model-turned-entrepreneur, Claire Hewitt. I felt the blood drain from my face. You're replacing me? No, he said. You were never permanent enough to replace. Silence. The kind that smothers. That screams louder than shouting. I stood. My legs trembled. But I wouldn't beg. I couldn't. Enjoy her, then, I said. Let's see how long she lasts. He smiled. Not cruelly. Not triumphantly. Just, peacefully. She doesn't lie, he said. That's a good start. I walked out of that club on shaking heels, my chest hollow, the city suddenly colder. And as I stepped into the street, the paparazzi flashes hit me again. Only this time. No one was asking who I was. They already knew. I was the wife who cheated, twice. I was the woman who lost. I was the glass house that shattered from the inside. And Marcus? He never lifted a finger. He just let the world do the rest.